The setter, as I have often said, is probably the key player on the volleyball court. Every player on the court certainly influences the result, but the importance of the setter cannot be overstated. And a prime example of this is the Argentine Luciano De Cecco. This magician can transform absolutely any team he plays for. In this episode of your favorite segment, Play Like a Pro, we'll talk about this elite setter. We will discuss not only interesting biographical facts, but also analyze De Cecco's playing style in detail. Before we get started, please give a like and subscribe to the channel. It took a lot of effort to make this episode. Now, as usual, let's not delay any further. Let's go! Luciano was born on June 2, 1988 in Argentina, in the city of Santa Fe. His mother was into volleyball and his father was into basketball, so sports were in the air. He started playing sports at the age of 4 at a multi-sport school. There you just paid a subscription fee and attended any sports activities that didn't clash with your school time. Therefore, Luciano engaged in various sports for up to 7 hours a day until he was 12 years old. Initially, during his studies, he focused more on basketball and swimming, and in the summer, he practiced beach volleyball. If volleyball and basketball practices coincided, he always preferred basketball. Luciano loved all sports involving hand skills, so football was not among his favorite disciplines, although he sometimes played it. When invited to play, he invariably took the goalkeeper position. De Cecco dreamed of becoming an NBA basketball player from a young age. He was incredibly inspired by the performances of the American Dream Team at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics and the first three-peat of the Chicago Bulls. His idol, somewhat surprisingly, was Shaquille O'Neal. The basketball atmosphere in the family was set by Luciano's father, Ricardo, who is still a basketball coach in Argentina. At the age of 14, upon finishing school, Luciano had to make a conscious decision about what he planned to pursue further. He clearly stated that basketball would be his main focus. Like Micah Christensen and Lucas Sakamp, whom I've discussed in separate videos, he faced a similar choice. If you haven't watched those videos, be sure to check them out. De Cecco played basketball quite successfully for several months and showed winning great promise in the sport. Who would have thought that Luciano's basketball career would end due to a massive flood in Santa Fe in 2003? He had to move, and bureaucratic issues prevented him from continuing his basketball career. Volleyball became the only viable option to stay in sports. To start his professional career, he had to go to Bolívar, a club located 900 kilometers from his home, where the best young talents from all over Argentina gathered. Luciano understood that this could be his last big opportunity and didn't hesitate to make the decision, although it was tough to break the news to his mother. She accompanied him on the trip to ensure her son would be all right. Why did De Cecco choose to be a setter? Being a setter is the most challenging role on the volleyball court, yet the most rewarding because the setter interacts with the ball the most. This position constantly requires analyzing and calculating numerous variables. Even the same hitter can feel different at various points in a set. Your opponent can also behave differently, and all this must be analyzed in split seconds. The setter must then make the perfect decision and deliver the perfect set. This immense responsibility is what attracted De Cecco to the role. Surprisingly, Luciano doesn't rely heavily on pre-match analysis and doesn't closely follow the opponent's game. He focuses on creating the best conditions for his teammates and values feedback. If a player misses an attack, they must explain what went wrong. Answers like "everything was fine" don't satisfy the setter. He needs to know what he can improve to help his team win crucial moments. In training, he pays a lot of attention to footwork and reflexes. Basketball helped him develop one-handed play, making such sets routine for him. Until recently, De Cecco was fanatically dedicated to volleyball. He would rewatch his matches either immediately after returning home or the next morning, sacrificing his personal life and leading to certain problems we'll discuss later. In 2009, De Cecco played a season in Russia for Kaliningrad's Dynamo Yantar. This was a turning point in his career, as he faced many challenges, including frequent and long travels and the cold. It was a serious test and character-building experience. Although not everything went perfectly, the setter considers it a crucial part of his career. Remarkably, he won the contest for the strongest serve in the Russian Super League All-Star game, surpassing Clayton Stanley, which shocked Luciano. For De Cecco, representing his country in international competitions has always been a priority. To secure a spot in the lineup and succeed on the court, the setter had to make many sacrifices. Early in his career, he turned down more lucrative contracts if he felt he might end up on the bench and lose playing time. He has been with the senior Argentine national team since 2006. No setter before or after him has stayed as long under the national banner, including youth and junior teams. Luciano has been playing for Argentina for over 20 years. This incredible stability earned him the honor of being his country's flag bearer at the opening ceremony of the 2024 Olympics in Paris, the first volleyball player from Argentina to receive such a privilege. To stay in top shape, he limited his vacations, traveled very little to prepare better for tournaments, so his country could be proud of him, even if it wasn't financially advantageous. In recent years, to be in more comfortable conditions, De Cecco has personally paid for comfort during flights and accommodations. The peak of his national team career was the bronze medal at the Tokyo Olympics, but it also marked the end of his psychological and emotional stability. The rigorous sports regime led to severe psychological problems. He began having nightmares where crocodiles constantly ate him, waking up in cold sweats. Initially he ignored it, but eventually he feared falling asleep. He either slept for a few hours after dawn or didn't sleep at all. Thoughts of suicide crossed his mind, and he even bought pills for that purpose, which he still keeps as a reminder of never returning to those days. Yes, Luciano was given medication to combat this problem, but they were on the list of banned and substances for athletes, so he had to refuse them. He could have taken a break from playing for several months to deal with the issue successfully, but he didn't want to let his team down. Virtually no one knew about the setter's ailment, not even close family. To ease his suffering, De Cecco would sleep hugging his favorite dog. Fortunately, despite the lack of results from psychological help, thanks to his analytical mind, Luciano found a solution. He started focusing more on his personal life, going for walks, socializing more, traveling and such. So no matter how passionately you love what you do, sometimes you need to step away to avoid literally going insane. How soon does Lucio plan to retire from volleyball? He doesn't see an end to his career yet. When he stops benefiting his team, stops bringing victories and no longer enjoys the game, then he'll be ready to retire. Maybe he'll take on the role of just a good setter on a salary, but he doesn't see himself in that role yet. Currently, he's unsure if he'll stay in volleyball after his career ends. He'll need a few months away from the sport to make a well-thought-out decision. Luciano De Cecco's biography is extensive, so dwelling on basic facts you can easily find isn't meaningful. Let's move on to analyzing the setter's play. Since this is an entertainment format and not dry statistics and analysis, I want to discuss De Cecco's skills in a casual format. As I mentioned earlier, Luciano doesn't believe much in statistical data and always relies on himself. Watching what the Argentine setter does, it's hard to say he's wrong. There's no point in trying to dissect and copy De Cecco's technique. If Micah Christensen, one of the most creative setters in the world, says Lucio is impossible to copy, what's the use of us, mere mortals, trying? Often what Luciano does is very different from what setters are taught in sports school. Yes, it looks incredibly beautiful and unpredictable, but it's backed by thousands of hours of training and extensive analytical work. Focus on the basics first. If you master your body, especially your hands, you can try using these techniques regularly. Luciano can set from any position, almost from any point on the court. Therefore, every hitter must be ready to attack from any pass. Some setters can be read by their body position, but not Luciano. It seems he deliberately positions himself incorrectly to perform his magic. If you see any serious technical flaws in his performance, save that moment because you might not see it again anytime soon. It's no wonder De Cecco doesn't like pre-match opponent analysis, as he can control what happens on the opponent's side himself. In split seconds, he can evaluate the situation across the net, track his hitters' positions and choose the right target. A hallmark of the Argentine is his interaction with middle blockers, as he's ready to involve them in any situation, often shocking his opponents. According to conventional wisdom, closely watching the middles makes no sense. Also, noteworthy are his one-handed sets. Many elite setters use this technique, but De Cecco's sets have a special control developed through years of basketball practice, where one must handle the ball with one hand. We can't forget to talk about De Cecco's other volleyball skills. Though he isn't a super formidable blocker, his high game intelligence and height over 190 centimeters allow him to regularly challenge opponents. If Luciano were a bit taller and jumped higher, he could be a real headache for opponents. De Cecco doesn't have a distinctive blocking style. Like with his sets, he can choose any option that comes to mind, regardless of conditions. He can jump from a standstill or use a full approach. Most often, De Cecco tries to block based on the ball, covering zone 6 with a slight emphasis on diagonal direction. If there's any unique trick, it's dropping his hands along the line. Don't expect many killer blocks, but he can provide a fair amount of soft touches for his team. In defense, Luciano is also quite conservative. He usually takes the same positions, and if the attack comes his way, he tries to do something with the ball. Initially, the setter doesn't aim to perfectly pass the ball to the player who will set. He first tries to keep the ball in play. There aren't many options for positioning. He almost always stays in zone 1, closer to the center of the court. The only exception is when De Cecco defends on the front line. Yes, sometimes he may be in zone 5, but we're talking about the most common situations. Defending against attacks from zones 1, 2, 3 and even 6 from this position makes sense, but defending against line attacks from the opponent's zone 4 is surprising. Yes, he shifts closer to the line, but it's still quite far compared to standard setups. De Cecco isn't focused on countering direct line attacks, he's more concentrated on off-speed shots, which makes logical sense. We'll conclude our analysis of this magnificent master with his serve. Although Luciano won the contest for the strongest serve in 2010, he's not considered a super aggressive server now. But like in other volleyball aspects, the Argentine relies on his outstanding game intelligence. What's the trick in De Cecco's serves? One favorite strategy is serving into crowded areas, especially in rotations where 3 players group together. Receivers often struggle to make the right decision, so even if it doesn't result in an ace, it can disrupt the reception quality or hinder the hitter's approach. He serves between the receivers in zones 5 and 6. The goal is the same: either disrupt the reception or slow down the attacker in zone 4, giving De Cecco's team an advantage. He also likes to short serve to zones near the middle blockers, which can cause panic among the receivers. The middle blocker might mess up the reception or delay getting into attack. Even if the middle doesn't make an error, they might hinder other receivers, benefiting De Cecco's team. De Cecco also likes to draw receivers closer to the net with short serves, then suddenly serve deep to catch them off guard. He can move the receiver in zone 1 closer to the center, again to his advantage. He watches the reception setup until the last moment, ready to decide at the last second. That concludes our analysis of the Argentine setter Luciano De Cecco. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I had a great time studying the biography and playing style of this episode's hero. I hope I conveyed these emotions to you. Don't forget to comment on who you'd like to see in future videos of this format. As always, it was Nick with you. Love what you do and you will definitely succeed. See you soon. Bye.